Welcome to another episode of Let's See Plants. I'm your host KD. Today we have a special guest. She's a psychologist, she's a vegan educator, and an author of The Vegan Transformation. She's here to share how going vegan helped her mind, body, and around the world. Welcome, Angela Crawford. How you doing?
I'm good. And thanks, for having me here. It's great to be here.
Oh, no problem. Do you mind if I call you Miss Angela?
Sure, sounds fine.
All right, I like to keep it respectful. So I gotta ask you the $1 million question. What made you put the meat down?
Ah, well, it was a little bit of a journey, but it started first with a couple things. One, I was at a conference where they
Hmm.
had plant-based food that was really delicious. So I think that planted the seed because before that I couldn't imagine like what did someone eat if they were vegan or plant-based.
Okay.
I grew up in the Midwest in Iowa, and just there was always meat on the plate and dairy, and I just didn't know any other way of eating to be healthy or to thrive. So that was one thing. And then a few months after having that really delicious food, I happened to see a program it
Hmm.
was about workers in a meat processing plant.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really known much about the whole process of how food gets to us. And this program, it didn't show a lot of details, but what it did was that they interviewed the workers, and the workers had a lot of injuries, and the work just
Uh,
seemed really not good. And many of them were immigrants and didn't feel like they had a lot of other options financially besides this work, and they were injured a lot. And then their employer was trying to tell them they couldn't take time off work or they'd lose their job.
hmm.
And it just struck me like, oh, I don't like this at all. Made me feel really uncomfortable. And I thought, I'm going to look into eating more plant-based. I don't think I want to, support an industry that's like this and that treats people this way. And then I thought, well, if you don't like how the workers are treated, what do you think about what happens to the animals? And just kind of led me down this path of reading everything I could for a while. And just to learn all about eating plant-based and being first vegetarian for many years, and
Okay.
then later took a little while to become fully vegan. That I was vegetarian like 18 years ago, but vegan took another 10 plus years, and so I
Yeah.
became vegan about 6 years ago.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you saying the type of job you was working for that pretty much inspired you to switch your diet to being a vegan.
Yeah, it played a role because, I was working at that time in a pain management program with people that were injured workers. So I think that gave me compassion when I saw that program about the workers. And then,
Okay.
I think it was a lot of things. Also, I helped people with health. A lot of the people I was working with as a therapist had health issues, and I myself was not a healthy eater and didn't really fully understand nutrition many years ago. But once I became vegetarian, then vegan, I became fascinated with learning about nutrition and health.
Hmm.
And I learned, for example, Dr. Dean Ornish, he had helped people reverse heart disease through a plant-based diet. And I have a family
Oh.
history of heart disease. So there
Mm.
was all these things I learned as I just started reading everything, and so not only about the ethics of what I was eating, but also the health aspects. And I learned about all these like vegan fitness people, like people that were athletes that were doing great on a plant-based lifestyle. So all these
Right.
things inspired me that not only could it be compassionate and kinder to the planet, but it also could be the best thing for me, especially if I did it in the right way, like paying attention to the nutrition and getting as much nutrients as I could and how I
Mm.
ate, that this could be really good for me as well as for the causes I cared about. So I think it was connected with being a psychologist because of being mindful of like our mind, body, spirit wellness.
Yeah. And I do want to ask because a lot of people don't keep this in mind, but from your perspective, how does food plays a role with your mental health?
Yeah, it does more than we realize. And I didn't fully realize that for many years either, because even though I was a psychologist, I didn't eat very healthy until I became vegetarian and then vegan. But because I eat a lot of comfort food and junk food, like a lot of us do. But what they find through the research is that eating, first of all, lots of fruits and vegetables actually is associated with better mental health and
Hmm.
better mindset. the fruits and vegetables have a lot of antioxidants in them and they seem to
Hmm.
help our brain chemicals. So, you
Right.
might have heard of things like serotonin and
Hmm.
dopamine. They play a role in how we feel. When we're
Hmm.
eating lots of fruits and vegetables and plant foods, it has the precursors for those different brain chemicals. So
Hmm.
they do find eating fruits and vegetables is good for our food and mood. And then for being fully plant-based, there is some research, especially if someone's eating a lot of whole plant foods, that can be associated with feeling better emotionally as well. So,
Right.
and another thing we don't realize too, KD, is that meat and dairy is actually inflammatory, as are a lot of processed foods too, highly processed foods. But meat and dairy have inflammatory compounds, and so inflammation affects our brain
Mm.
as well as it affects our physical body. So
I
it can
believe
make
that.
us more depressed if we have a lot of inflammatory foods that we're eating.
I believe that. I believe that 100% because when I switched to being a plant based, well, let me say this way: when I start eating more plant based food, because a lot of people think like the Beyond Meat and the Impossible Meat is plant based. It's not plant based. But like plant based is like me eating on mushrooms and chickpeas stuff like that. I feel rejuvenated. I feel a lot better. It sit well in my stomach. And I feel, I don't know, mentally clear with certain situations as well. It's kind of crazy. So me mentioning that from my experience, you eating, I believe you said whole grain. How you pronounce that word? Whole.
Yeah, sometimes they use the term whole food, plant-based as a way to like,
Okay.
because it's vegan in that there's no animals involved, but it's a specific way of eating vegan where you're trying to eat as much whole foods that are like more like you'd see them if they came out of the ground. Maybe not not 100%. You're gonna like, for example, hummus would be considered a whole food because it comes from chickpeas, but it's ground up. So,
Right.
um,
So what I want to ask, how do you feel mentally, physically, since you've been eating on the whole food diet?
yeah, overall good. I mean, it's not that I don't have ups and downs like anybody might, I do, but it gives me like a groundedness that I think helps me to cope better with the ups and downs.
Right.
So, as you were mentioning, feeling clearer, I feel clear, I feel good. I don't have all the roller coaster I once maybe had when I was eating a lot more junk and sugar. And for me, getting rid of dairy felt actually very good. Cleared up sinuses as well as made me feel just better overall.
Yeah, cause see, I'm not gonna lie. Like when I was transitioning to the vegan diet at first, I ate. I was still eating dairy. I was eating a lot of like seafood, like crab barrel. That's not the word. Crab boils. I used to love crab legs. And when I eat the crab sauce, like when I eat dairy, I get bloated. So when I'm not eating dairy, I don't feel as bloated. And that's something like I noticed when I stopped putting the dairy down.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting you say that because I mean, I've been so fascinated by this whole how we eat thing that I did, some different nutrition training. I'm not a nutritionist or anything, but I've done different programs in that. And one thing I learned is that 70% of the world is actually what you'd call lactose intolerant, and that once once you reach a certain age, your body doesn't produce the chemicals to let you process milk products. And, certainly milk from another species, like a cow, but we've never been taught that. We're just taught, oh, we have to drink milk your whole life, even though really our bodies aren't, for the most part, designed for that. We're designed to drink milk as an infant from our mother,
Right.
but not really so some people have a genetic thing that lets their body process milk and tolerate it okay, but even so, it's still not healthy even then because it's got inflammatory.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I noticed that as I got older, me in dairy, I get lactose, and
yeah,
I did not understand it until as I got, until I started paying attention and doing my research about food. And what I
yeah.
want to ask you is that like what inspired you to transitioning from additional psychotherapy to a vegan education and act can't even pronounce the word. And let me put that question. What inspired you to transition from a traditional uh, psychotherapy to a vegan education and advocacy?
Yeah, well, I loved my work as a therapist. I did it for about 25 years, and um, I think there's kind of two parts to it. One is just that phase of my life, it just felt that it was time to make a transition because it's a very meaningful but also intense work to hold that space for people through all their, tough
Hmm.
times.
Yeah.
So I knew I'd probably needed to make a transition. But the other part of that is, for me, like becoming vegan was so transformational that I felt it was important to share it with other people because I feel like we're not really given information about what's truly healthy for us. We
Right.
get a lot of false information from the media. And then I care about our planet. And one of the things I've learned is that animal agriculture, especially the way we do it now, is so intensive, like that it really takes a toll on the environment. And, I don't want to destroy our planet. There's just so much you see happening
Yeah.
with that. So, I mean, I just felt like it was important on all different levels, from just our own health to the planet to our mental health, that I wanted to be able to share it with people. And I've always dreamed of writing a book. So I started doing research for this book that I have coming out now about 4 years ago, and it just now is finally coming out. So,
Okay. 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 Yeah. 'Cause so for me, like, I didn't do it because of animals. I did it for the diet.
mhm.
And I wanted to ask you, so by you being the diet you have, you don't wear no animal products, no anything that made from an animal?
I try my best, yeah. It was a process for me too. I started vegetarian, and I don't know, for many years that was fine for me. But then, I don't know, as I kept learning more about the health aspects of it and the ethical and the environmental aspects, I just started to realize that the dairy and eggs were problematic for me too. Um,
Uh,
but
because some people who's vegan, like they don't touch nothing that's from an animal, whether besides the food, like no clothing,
yeah,
no,
I
you
try
know.
not to. I try to
Oh,
buy,
okay.
all. That's a process because sometimes you have to learn where things come from, and it's not always easy. But I do try. That's when I became vegan. I made that commitment that I decided I was going to really try not to buy products that were made from animals, including clothing or cosmetics. But that does take some searching because it's not always easy to know. You have to do a little research to do that.
I agree. I agree. So, in your opinion, what is one misconception about veganism or well, I cannot talk today. Dang.
You're doing great.
What is one misconception about veganism or psychological? I cannot talk today. Jeez, I'm having a bad day. I'm sorry. So, like, what's one conception about being a vegan and being a no? Let me repeat that question. What's one misconception about veganism or psychology that you wish you could erase forever?
Well, with veganism, I think it's the idea that it's depriving or restrictive. That would be one right there because, and I know I had that belief at one time, like, oh, what would you eat if you're a vegan? I knew a vegan many, many years ago that I thought all she ate was carrots and celery. I mean, that wasn't really true, but that's all I
Right.
saw her eat. So I thought there was just like, I just couldn't even imagine. It was hard enough to figure out what to eat. But what actually happened when I first became vegetarian and then later vegan was my world opened up. Like I started eating a wider range of foods than I ever had before. I never really ate a lot of fruits and vegetables before. I just ate what was convenient. Suddenly, like I was eating all these different foods and trying new recipes and trying new things, just kind of like you were describing. So I think one misconception is this idea that it's depriving or restrictive. All the people I interviewed for my book, including myself, all found that we actually eat more variety than we ever did before, and that it's actually more
Mm,
enjoyable and flavorful than we ever knew it
yeah.
would be.
Yeah.
And
Y-
so, and kind of related to that, that you're mentioning psychology. I think it's also maybe a lot of people don't realize that going on this plant-based vegan journey, you can also feel more fulfilled psychologically
mm,
because I don't know, there's just so much good that can come from it, whether it's for your health and you just feel better. When you feel better, you're going to feel better emotionally too.
Right.
or whether if it's more for ethical or environmental reasons, you feel good because you're doing it for something you care about that
Yeah.
makes you feel
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, definitely. No, definitely. I definitely agree because I remember when I met people, I never met a person who was vegan. I just heard about it, and I thought the same thing that they eat just carrots and salads. I didn't like know like how actually the food is really good. I never knew until I stepped into the world. Not step into the world, step into that vegan world. And cause like, and I forgot to mention what made me go vegan. What made me change my diet is watching What the Health, and watching that gave me a different perspective. So I started eating like Beyond Meat. That was the substitute meat for me, and yeah, I was very impressed. I was very impressed. But I'm not gonna lie, certain vegan foods I do not like. Like I don't like vegan cheese. It depends on where I'm getting it from. It depends on who's making it. But I do not like vegan cheese. I do not like vegan cheese. But being vegan definitely was underrated to me. I didn't know how good it was, and I wanted to ask you too, for someone just starting to question their diet or lifestyle, what's one step you recommend?
One step I recommend, say that again.
So if someone who wanna, if someone's starting to question their diet or their lifestyle, what's one step you would recommend?
Well, first of all, I think taking a step forward just to start to explore. So for some people, it might be just eating a really good plant-based meal somewhere, like if you have a restaurant that serves plant-based food or something, just trying something, because sometimes I think we get this conception that it's so different.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that different. A person that's wanting to consider exploring this
Mm-hmm.
could try foods that like are similar to what they already like,
Yeah.
but just a more plant-based vegan version of it. And starting like with baby steps just to see what's possible and see how you feel. Some people just feel so much better physically after a period of time of eating plants instead of animal products. For example, a couple of the people I interviewed for my book research, after like a month on a plant-based diet, plant-based, no animal diet, they were free of inflammation, and chronic pain or other things they'd had for a long time was suddenly gone. So sometimes just
Mm.
people feel so much better if they try it out. So just like take a baby step, see what happens.
Have you tried sea moss?
CMOS?
Yeah.
I've heard about that. In fact, there was a while I was taking a supplement that had that, and from a vegan fitness person that had created a supplement that had that in it, and she really recommended it. I haven't been lately. How about you?
Yes, I have. You would like it.
Okay.
Um, yeah, the benefits that I've seen, I slept better, I feel more energetic. I don't really feel like aches in my body. It go with if you dealing with a lot of aches in your body, that helps a lot. I
Well, that's
believe
good
sea
to
moss.
know.
Yeah, I think
Cool.
sea moss has about like 90 minerals. I think
Hmm.
90 some plus minerals, and the body needs 100 too. So it's very beneficial. I've been slacking, but it's very beneficial. And there's a lot of fake sea moss out there, so I recommend to like be very like cautious. Do your
Okay.
research, and if you ever interested, you can always let me know, and I can give you tips and stuff like that, what to watch out for.
Okay. That's
But
good to
yeah,
know. Yeah.
sea moss definitely beneficial. That's why, because you was talking about how a plant based helps you physically. That's what made me ask.
Hmm. Yeah, because
Yeah,
sometimes you're right. Like having certain nutrients in particular can add to, you're getting rid of some of the inflammation in your body by letting go of certain foods, but then what are you putting in it that helps you also have more anti-inflammatory? And that sounds like another healthy nutrient to add in.
right. So I want to ask you this: what are your go-to practices for holistic well-being outside of diet?
Okay. Well, for me personally, and this is something I used to help my clients with too,
Mm-hmm.
one piece of the puzzle is how do we start our day? No matter what time it is that you get up, having some practices that you start your day with can help a lot in how the rest of your day goes. So,
Right.
there were many years for me, I was struggling to get out of bed on time and rushing to work, many, many years ago. And then over time, I just discovered that when I actually got up at a decent time and allowed time for example, meditation, exercise, if you're a spiritual person, prayer, just having these grounding practices to start your day so that you are grounded and not just reacting to what life throws at you through the day, all the
Right.
social media, all the news, all the different stuff that you will see and hear as the day goes on. So
Hmm.
starting your day with some sort of ritual or routine. Exercise obviously is a great one, but also things like meditation too, breathing practices, just things that help you. And what is your intention for the day? What do you want to accomplish that day? Having this focus that helps you start the day, and you being intentional about how you're doing that, because certainly life is going to throw a lot at you the minute you go out the door or open your phone or
Yes, I agree, 100%. I'm a firm believer is that you have full control of how your day gonna go.
Mhm.
Just because outside is rainy and gloomy doesn't mean doesn't mean you're gonna have a bad day. It's just what you. It's all about, life is what you make it. So
Mhm.
if you wake up and say, you know what, I'm gonna have a bad day because it's raining. I gotta go to work today. I don't want to be here. Then you gonna have a bad day. But you just wake up with a positive mind and say, you know what, today's gonna be a good day. Thank God it's Monday. A lot of people say thank God it's Friday. You know what? Thank God it's a Monday.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm finna have. I'm gonna have a good Monday. That's
Yeah.
that's that's how I am when I wake up.
I
'Cause
love that. I mean, because you're really touching on another piece of the puzzle, which I would certainly agree with you, is just the whole mindset, consciously choosing how you think, being aware when those negative thoughts are coming in and
yeah,
deciding I'm not going to just go with those. Let's choose what I want for today.
exactly. And sometimes you can still have a good day. Something boom, your car break down, whatever happens. But you know what? And I'm a firm believer. There always a positive side of everything we go through in life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great, I love that.
Yeah,
How can
yeah, and
I?
it's hard to it's either said than done. Don't get me wrong, because but when I go through certain things, like I don't know, I'm gonna give you a prime example. I need to get a oil change for my car. I didn't have the money for it, and I was going to wait until a following week, but I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait, and plus I was like, man, if I pay for it, I'm gonna be broke for this week. But you know what? The positive side of it, I have my oil change. A guy said something. He said it's cheaper than paying for an oil change than replacing a motor. And that's the positive side of it. It's like, no, at least I got the way, and I still got my car. That if anything happens, I got something. My car is reliable. I have my I can't even get my words together. I'm talking so fast. Basically, what I'm saying is that I got my car handled, and
Yeah.
um, it's gonna take me to point A to point B.
I love that. I love that idea of even things that seem negative on the surface can have something positive come of them. And certainly they can if we choose to see that. I mean, and the people we admire the most are not the ones that just had life come perfectly. It was how they made the most of things no matter what came at them.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. That's very true. Because I'm a firm believer is that you got to go through something to get to something. No matter what it is, I'm pretty sure when you turn your book, it was some challenges you had to
Mhm.
face in your personal life, even during the process of making it. But once you overcome that, the reward is 10 times better. Even me starting this podcast, it was tough. My dad passed away while I was pre-recording. Yeah, so it's just a choice that I had to make. Either I'm going to sit in my sadness or make something out of this situation. Of course, I'm sad. I have my moments, but I just couldn't sit in it and just let life pass me by. And I'm 6, 8 months later, I'm still like down and depressed about what happened. Just like no, because it's all about how you make your life. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
and this is what I want to ask. I'm glad I brought that up. You've been doing this for 25 years. Um, you've been a psychologist for 25 years. What patterns have you noticed when it comes to people wanting to change but feeling stuck?
Yeah, I guess a few things. One would be it really fit with what we were just talking about with mindset. negative self-talk, not believing in themselves, or thinking you have to know all the answers right up front. Sometimes it is just a matter of taking the next step and the next step and the next step. You might think about lifestyle changes you've made, and maybe those that are listening can think about a lifestyle change you've tried to make, whether it's exercising more regularly or having a healthier diet or, anything like that. And it's just sometimes we just feel like we have to know how it's going to look right up front, but sometimes we can't know until we take the next step. So it might be doing a little bit of research. It might be carving out time in your schedule to just get started. So that's one, I think, is the mindset. And I think another can be that we want to feel motivated before we take action, but over and over again, research and experience shows that we have to sometimes take action before we feel motivation. So sometimes,
Mm.
again, we've probably heard that idea of like, okay, you want to exercise, well, have your clothes laid out, have things in place, take that first step. Um, if it's exercise, again, go to the gym, even for 10 minutes, if that's all you do, but at least you're in motion and you might find yourself wanting to stay. So it's just not waiting to feel the motivation for an activity that's important to you, but just start to put it in place to take even little tiny steps of action.
I like that. I like that. And also I believe too, it's all about celebrate the small wins too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
love that. I agree with you 100%. A really great book kind of fits with what you're saying. A couple great books.
Hmm.
One is called, they both have habits in the title. Tiny Habits is one of the books, and Atomic Habits
Hmm.
is the other. And um, they both have to do with exactly what you're describing, and what we're talking about, celebrating those small wins. And, there's something about that that helps you keep moving forward. And instead of
Yeah.
beating up on yourself that you've never done enough or.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to ask you this too. I don't know you ever experienced this or deal with a client. It's two questions. Like sometimes people, including myself, or the same age as me, where they feel like, okay, I'm not where I want to be at in life, and they super young. They could be 21 or whatever age they are. They feel like they're not where they at in life. They comparing themselves what they see on social media, or comparing themselves when they see their friends and family. What is your advice for someone who have that problem?
Wow, that's a common one, and I think it's probably made worse nowadays with where social media is. I
Yeah.
think what you're naming is so true. Yeah, I think, we can look at what we envy and think about, is this something I truly want for myself? Because sometimes, we're comparing and we're thinking, "Oh, I want to be like this person or that person," but we really don't when we think about what it would take to be there, or maybe that's not really us. So it's sort of like getting in touch with, okay, that might look good on the surface, but I don't know half of what's going on in this person's life. I don't necessarily know all the struggles they've had to get there or all the problems they're having, because social media never shows that hardly.
Right.
So it's coming back to you and saying, okay, what do I really want for me? This might look good on the surface, but what do I really want enough to show up for it? Starting to listen to your own inner voice. So
Hmm.
sometimes taking that break from social media, if that's what you need, or not, at least spending some time with things other than that, and getting in touch with, what do I really want? What really matters to me? What lights me up? Because we can think something sounds good, but it's not. Like, I might envy someone that's had certain success in their work or something, but I wouldn't want to really do the steps that it took for them to get there, because that's just not
Right.
in my interests. So it's coming back to, what do I really want? What makes me happy? And how do I take steps towards the things that really light me up?
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good because I was a victim of having that. No, no, I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. I won't say I was a victim, but like I had that problem where I'm like, man, if I would, I'm a truck driver, so I'm 20. I'll turn 30 in a couple months. So I was like, man, if I would have did this at this age, I would have been so farther in life, and I would have been like this person, that person. But then I had to really remember that, okay, if I would have had that at that age, would I able to handle it, deal with the stress at the time? Because sometimes people don't understand that with a person, like sometimes. is that you probably wasn't ready to be in that position, or maybe your time hasn't came yet, you
Yeah.
know. And just patience is everything. I think a lot of people don't understand. It's just back to what we were just saying, just really the mindset, you know.
Yeah. And as you're saying, I just think that's so true. It's almost like if you think about, for example, a plant or a tree growing, there's certain stages of its growth. You can't like have certain things before the time has come, and you're naming that too. So aside from the fact that some things that other people have, you might not even really truly want in your heart of hearts, but also even things you do want, sometimes there's a process, and
Right.
we have to grow and grow into what we want sometimes, and that, and also just life has ups and downs and challenges that seem to be part of why we're here. We're here to grow in some way, and
I agree.
it's not always smooth and pretty, but can we keep growing and learning and taking steps forward? And I mean, I think of myself, for example, the book, I've had a vision since childhood of writing a book, but it didn't happen until just recently, this particular book. So there's
Yeah.
just sometimes things don't have their season until later, but yet we sense them, we can see them, but we're just not quite there. We have things to put in place first.
Yep. And a wise man once told me, life is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep, yep, yep. And also too, I want to ask, someone that's listening, like, how can people stay consistent when they feel unsupported by family or their community?
So with whatever like goals they're working towards, you mean that sort of thing?
Yeah, yeah, because
Yeah.
sometimes some people feel unmotivated. I'm sorry. Some people feel unmotivated because, they might not get the recognition from their peers, or
Yeah.
they just,
Yeah, and that's
just,
very hard. We're very social creatures. So what you're saying
yeah,
is so true. We're wired to want connection and support. And in fact, some studies show that when if we're isolated, not only is it harder to reach our goals, as you're saying, but we also can have less poorer health and other stuff. So it is important to have supports. I guess, what I'd say is, for the people who are already in your life, see if they're at all willing to support you in certain ways. For example, I can think of the vegan plant-based thing as an example because that's a hard one for people because sometimes we're the only ones in our family or network that are plant-based. So,
right.
and the same could be true for exercise or other goals. So it might be just saying to a family or friend, family member or friend, hey, this is really important to me for these reasons. I'm doing this for my health. I'm doing this for whatever. I'd really appreciate it if you'd be supportive while I'm doing this, and what that looks like. Maybe they just encourage you or give you positive words. So
Right.
one might be directly asking for support, but then beyond that, if suppose, maybe they're not supportive anyway, even though you ask, or I think it's seeking out people that are like-minded if possible.
Yeah.
If you can find them in the gym or in a group or whether it's online or in person or podcasts like this. I just think finding places where there's people that are like-minded and share your goals in some way will help feel less alone so that there's other people on the same path that care about the same things.
Yeah. No, yeah, yeah, I like that. I like that. I think too, what I realized too, because I had that moment where I was feeling a little stuck. I want to say I was feeling unmotivated. I would get frustrated when I'm not like feeling supported or stuff like that. And one thing I learned is that, be grateful of the people you have around you that's supporting you, whether that's three people, it don't matter who it is, because that right there, it means a lot, for me, that, and yeah. So, and I even ask you, you probably answer this, but this is really my own question. What made you want to be a psychologist? I can't pronounce it. I can't.
It's kind
Me
of
and that
hard word
word
to
is,
say, really. It doesn't even look like it, the way it's spelled, it doesn't even look right.
yeah.
So I totally get it.
It don't, because I was so before I started, like, how you pronounce this word? I'm practicing. I'm practicing. Okay, I got the word. Now we doing. I'm just like that word beating my ass right now.
Well, it's funny what made me want to be one. I think I started actually in college as a journalism major because I like to write.
Okay.
But I found that I wasn't really into like I had to do this news reporting class, and for me to go out and try to get a story, it just wasn't my personality. It wasn't, that didn't really fit for me. And I was taking a psychology class at the time, and I just loved it. I was so fascinated by like how people's minds work and how, why we do what we do and human behavior and
Mm.
emotions and, just the whole thing. I just loved the class so much that I ended up switching my major midway through college and, deciding to go on to grad school, and I loved it. I still love it. It's still part of like my writing and teaching. It all really stems from the psychology background because I care
Oh.
so much about the human condition and how do we, I don't know, how do we feel better and become better?
So, okay, I want to ask you this because you said you studied a person's mind. So, from your studies, from doing your research, in your perspective, why do people downplay seeing a therapist and getting their mind right?
Mm. Yeah, I think even though it's more accepted than it certainly was years ago, there's probably still a stigma with it where you think, well, if I go to see a therapist, it must mean that I'm saying something's wrong with me, or, or people will think there's something wrong with me, or even that I'm quote unquote crazy. But the thing is, I mean, when I was a therapist, I saw all kinds of people. I mean, I've seen a therapist before. It just, I think what I'd tell people to consider is if you find a good match, and there's all kinds of therapists, you could find someone that's a good match. If you find a good match, someone that you feel comfortable with, it can be a great place to set some goals, get some things off your chest, overcome areas where you feel stuck. I mean, not everybody needs to see a therapist, but if you're feeling like really blocked in some part of your life where you're just not able to break through, or you're having psychological symptoms like high stress levels, high anxiety levels, high depression levels, and definitely if there was any, suicidal thoughts, any of those would be a good reason to see one. And they
Hmm.
have tools to help, and you don't have to go forever. It can just sometimes be short term, you know, long enough to get some support, some tools, some different
I agree.
ways to cope. I mean, I think any of us can have a time where we just feel weighted down and we need that added support. So
I agree.
there's nothing wrong with it, and I think more and more people are accepting it as a reasonable thing nowadays.
I agree. Therapy, because I go to therapy. I've been going to therapy for the past, I think, 3 years. I think, and it helped me to have a different perspective on things. Helped me to be more open minded. It helped me to handle things better, and not to be so emotional. Not to be an emotional thinker. And I never
Yeah.
knew like therapy can do that for a person because I always thought
Yeah.
like I had all the answers. Especially,
Yeah. No, I
especially
totally
being
get that.
Yeah, especially being in a relationship, like I thought I had all the answers on how to be a boyfriend and be a better, I'm saying it's wrong. I thought I had the answers of how to be a romantic lover and also how to be a friend and a brother and a son. Nah, yeah, that gave me a
Yeah.
different perspective for
No, that's
sure.
really neat. It sounds like, it opened your mind to seeing different perspectives. And I think that could be true for any of us, like broadening
Right.
our minds and seeing like, oh, well, someone else might see it differently than I do, or react to me differently than I realize.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So to wrap things up, and we're gonna switch topics. Before we even wrap things up, we cannot leave and not talk about your book.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, um, what was the what was the heart behind writing the vegan transformation?
Well, I knew there were a lot of books out there about the physical health benefits of plant-based and vegan eating, and I love those books. They've affected my life, but I hadn't seen much out there about the emotional and spiritual benefits of eating plant-based and vegan, and just the whole vegan lifestyle in general. So I guess because I was a psychologist and because I'd had my own feelings of transformation from being vegan, I just wanted to explore that and share that. So I actually did surveys and interviews with, I surveyed about 350 vegans through like an online questionnaire, and then I
Hmm.
did some interviews with 75 vegans. just to see how has their life changed since being vegan and more of the emotional, psychological, and spiritual realms of their life. And then also were there challenges they faced and how did they deal with those? And so the book
Mm,
really captures both the emotional and spiritual benefits that people reported to me. And then it also captures, okay, there are some challenges too, being different from other people in your network and, some of the things you and I have talked about. How did they cope with those? And so it shares both the strengths of it as well as how do you deal with the tough parts of, changing your lifestyle.
I think it's dope. It's different, and it's so cool. Like me just being in the vegan community, like how there's books and like stuff what you doing. That's really an eye opener. What you doing? I like that. I like that. I like that. So like, if you don't mind sharing, can you share one of the most powerful stories or insights from the book that still sticks with you?
Yeah. Gosh, there were some really great ones. Um, there's a chapter in the book about health empowerment, and
Mm-hmm.
that had like 5 or 6 stories that were just amazing. By health empowerment, I mean this idea that one, we've talked about how with plant-based eating, there's research showing you could reverse heart disease and, just different other things like type 2 diabetes has been shown to be affected in a positive way by eating plant-based. I had, several stories of people in there that had been healed from different chronic diseases like chronic pain, what else? Um, some with cancer,
Yeah.
and other diseases where suddenly, their life changed and they reclaimed their life. I had one person I interviewed who is, I think she was 80 years old and she's still teaching aerobics classes, It was
Wow.
just she doesn't look it at all. She looks way younger. I had another woman who is a fitness coach that I interviewed that her family had had a lot of chronic illness and, early on in life, and she didn't want to go that route. So she changed to a plant-based diet, and now she coaches other people, and just her life had turned around. A lot of people said they felt more at peace and they'd found also a sense of purpose because they want to help others. I think when we
Mm-hmm.
feel better, we want to help other people. We want
Yep.
to
I
share.
agree. I agree. And it's funny that you said that part because like when I start like taking the sea moss and like changing my diet, eating more healthier, I try to encourage everybody, like you have to do this. Like I'm telling you, you're gonna like it. And that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast to really to spread awareness about healthy eating. Like this really can change your life, especially if you having like health problems. Um, because sometimes when people go through these things, they think that it's the end of the world. Like they have to accept, no, I'm a diabetic, so I have to live with this for the rest of my life. You don't. You actually can correct it by changing what you eat. So I definitely, yeah, yeah, I can relate to that part. So
Awesome.
like, yeah, so this my two last questions. Actually, no, I got three last questions, and I want to ask you this. Like, does it be like mentally draining for you when you hear certain clients? No, 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 no. That's not how I want to ask you. Do you sometimes like feel mentally drained when dealing with so many clients that tell you about their problems? And how do you deal with that? Handle that for yourself. Yeah, it can be draining sometimes because I even with myself, I can talk to somebody for an hour about an issue, and so when I get off the phone, I'm like, man, like, ooh, like, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like I'm an empathic person, so a lot of things in the world affect me when I watch the news, not even just seeing clients. There's just a lot of things that affect me emotionally. But,
Hmm.
when I was seeing clients, I learned how to hold space for people, but then at the end of the day, kind of take care of myself, so I had practices in my life that helped me decompress and sort of separate. And I don't always have easy answers to that because I think many of us can, I don't know, feel drained when we want to help others and yet it can be overwhelming sometimes. And so I think maybe one of the things I had to do was learn what I have control over and what I don't. Sometimes when you're
Uh,
feeling for someone else, you want to fix it or you want to make it all better. And it's like learning to feel with someone and have compassion for them and in my case, when I was a therapist, help them in certain ways, but also just hold that trust that it's not my job to fix everything in the world, or other people's stuff. It's just to trust they will find their path one way or another.
I like that.
And it's not always easy to do that.
It's not.
I say it's an ongoing process, but of learning to be compassionate but not over responsible, So,
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree because, I had a moment of like getting emotional thinking about my dad because, my dad passed away due to his
hmm
health. And he didn't take care of his health. So it's like, man, what more could I have done? And I was talking to a friend. I was like talking with him, and he said something you had said, like sometimes you gotta control what you can control. You can't control everyone. You can't save everyone.
yes, you don't have control over their choices or
Right.
their path. Even if you shared stuff with them and they didn't do it, or just it's hard sometimes to realize that, but it's
No, I
just
agree. I agree. So this is my two last questions. Anyone who wanna see a therapist, what's your suggestion for them?
yeah, well, I think right now it's set up so that therapists are licensed by state. So you would, need to find someone in your state. And so I think like a good way, one can be like if you have a primary care doctor or somebody you see, sometimes they can have some really good recommendations for you. Like that might be a thought.
Hmm.
There is, I think Psychology Today has an app as well on the internet where you can look for therapists in your region. So just like Googling, therapists in your area, and a lot of times Psychology Today will come up and it has a list of people like locally that has a description of them and what they work with, and just seeing what is a good match. So either like your doctor or something like that, Psychology Today, or if a friend knows somebody, 'cause I think sometimes recommendations are really good when,
Hmm.
but be willing to go to more than one if you don't connect with the first time, because sometimes that happens. You just may not connect and you want it to be a good relationship.
I agree. I agree because sometimes people say that like, "Oh, I stopped going because I didn't like the therapist that I had and stuff like that," and just you can't get discouraged. You got to find a connection, which you just said. Yep, yep, yep. So this is my last question. Uh, if you could sit down and have a vegan meal with anyone, living or dead, who would it be and what would you eat?
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh, that's so hard. But you know what? Um, right now at this moment, I have to say Cory Booker.
Okay, why is that?
Just because I admire him, as a vegan and, the courage he has to speak up and stuff. He might be one person. There's others too. I'm trying to think. I wouldn't mind meeting Joaquin Phoenix either, but and I'm sure
Okay,
there's many others if I sat there and thought about it. But what would I eat? Maybe hmm, I'm sure a lot of. I mean, when you eat out, there's so many good options. It could be anything from a really good vegan pizza to a vegan lasagna to
okay,
any of those would be good.
okay, okay. Yeah, for me, I don't know. I might catch flack for saying this, but
Who?
I said I might catch flack for saying this, but I might have to say Donald Trump.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah, because he's very interesting.
but it
I'm,
wouldn't be a vegan meal with. He wouldn't have the vegan meal.
I mean, I wish. I mean, he might have. I mean, I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so, because I love eating chickpeas mushroom burgers.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yummy.
yeah, I
Yeah,
had.
that's really good.
Yeah, I learned how to make it from TikTok. So
Yeah.
if I can have that with him, we can have chickpeas mushroom burgers. Hey, that'd be
Wow, that
perfect.
would be interesting, I have to admit.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Because like, I mean, I'm not saying I'm the biggest fan of his. I'm not. It's just his perspective. I'm not. His just his outlook on things. And, those type of people who are strongly disliked, I wouldn't mind talking with them just to see their
Yeah.
see that outlook. Just yeah, that's just who I
Understand
am.
more where they're coming from and
Yeah, yeah. Like it makes me more just they to me. This is my opinion. They seem more interesting
hmm.
because sometimes it's not about how. Some people look at how to deliver it. They don't look at the message. So it's just like I'm just so curious of like where things came from and how did it started and stuff like that. That's just me though.
Yeah. Well, have you ever thought of more of like journalism? I mean, I guess in a way you're sort of doing that through your podcast, the interviews and all that.
I never thought about it. Nah, I never thought about it. I never thought about it. I did went to school. I don't know if it plays a role in my degree. I got my social degree in liberal arts.
Hmm.
So like I don't know. I don't know. But I would never say never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's probably a lot of vegans that I'd love to have a meal with. I'd have to like think about it and give a whole list.
Yeah, but no, yeah, it's a lot too. It's a lot too as well. And I even asked before I even ended. Have you juiced?
Have I juiced?
Yeah, do you be juicing?
Not lately, but I have. I love it. It's just a lot of cleanup. That's the main
Yes, it is.
challenge.
Yeah, I should ask you that. Well, let me ask you that then. Like, like when you do juice, because like before I even answer this, how do you feel physically when you make your own juice compared to drinking a juice that's made in the store?
Oh, I mean, I think your own juice is a million times better. It's just a lot of work, and so you have to really plan for it and have the time set aside. So I do smoothies more than juice, just because it's a little easier for me to do those. Even though I
Okay.
think juices taste great and they can be really refreshing and
Yeah.
energizing.
Yeah, because like, 'cause, the smoothies I add to the sea moss and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, when I was juicing, I seen a major difference of making my own juice compared to drinking the juice from the store.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with
Way
you.
different, way different, tastes different, and yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Juicing's changed my life.
Yeah, I've heard for a lot of people, I mean, I admire it, and I think it gives you a boost of nutrients that just can be really helpful for, a lot of people.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. Well, I'm gonna end things. I want to say thank you for your time, Miss Angela. I appreciate you for coming. Um, wish you good luck on your book. I'm definitely gonna buy it and check it out. And when does your book supposed to be coming out?
Its official release date is Earth Day, April 22nd. It is available at most online booksellers in both in paperback and ebook. So
Okay, okay. Well, you said April 22nd. Yeah, see, I'm planning on dropping this interview around next month. But listen, if you guys like reading, check the book out. I'm definitely gonna check it out. And thank you for your time. And we will do this again. I would love to bring you back on and talk to you more about vegan topics and things like that.
awesome. I've enjoyed it. Really, you're an inspiring person to me.
Oh, likewise to you too. Thank you, thank you.